In our previous video, we talked a little bit about deep work. In this video, we're going to talk about the 23-minute rule. And I don't know if that's like a law of the universe, but it is something that is presented to me from neuroscience, the 23-minute rule. What is that? So when our work is uninterrupted, when our mind is able to focus for a certain amount of time, something happens. And this something is pretty popular these days. It was based on a book by an author whose name is very difficult to describe, but it's called Flow State. And in that book, he talks about all of the different mechanisms that are necessary for a person to achieve flow. But what is that? Like, what is this flow state? What is this 23-minute rule? First of all, the flow state could be described as a human being without resistance, a human being that is acting and behaving and creating with the least amount of muscular tension, mental tension, spiritual tension to perform their task. And so I gave a few different examples of how a person can engage in deep work, different types of deep work that a person can engage in. It could be surgery, it could be brain surgery, something like that. It could be video games. It could be really anything that a person wants to give their undivided attention to create a type of quality in what they're doing. Well, if a person is able to focus long enough, and they've done some research, and 23 minutes is the number that they came up with. I'm a little bit on the older side, so 23 always reminds me of Michael Jordan. So if that helps you remember, 23 to find flow, to find this state of uninterrupted or uninterruptible. It's very difficult to pull somebody out of this state of impeccable focus once they enter it. So once that surgeon catches their flow, once they get into their rhythm, and that's really what the flow state could be boiled down to, is the rhythm of brain waves, from one brain wave to an alpha brain wave to a different brain wave. And so that's one way that we could look at it. But we could also look at it as this uninterrupted state of flowing energy, and the human being becomes the tool and the instrument for that flowing energy. So there's times and I'm using the treatment room because that's where a lot of my deep work, studying. And when what am I studying for? Well, I'm studying so that I can achieve treatment outcomes in the clinic. And there's times, especially in the beginning when I first started as a senior intern, where my mind was all over the place. I was concerned about a lot of different things. And so it was very difficult to focus. And at the end of the day, I would look back and I'd be like, shit, that was a train wreck. Like that was really all over the place and it wasn't good. Well, some of that was because I was a beginner. So some of that is to be expected. It's not the end of the world. As I gain more experience, I gain more confidence, I gain the ability to focus on single tasks as opposed to multiple tasks all at once. And my mind is like a laser beam. It's like a focused beam of energy as opposed to something that is being scattered. And you start to hit that 23-minute mark. Maybe it's a little bit sooner, maybe it's a little bit later. It just depends on the person. It's not this golden rule of the universe. It's just the number that comes up in studies. But let's say after about 23 minutes in the clinic, I have a 4-hour shift and I start to catch my flow. Things start to come to me easier. Ideas start to happen with less resistance, with less interruption. And the physical treatment has more of the energy and the focus and the intention that I want it to. And that comes easier and easier and easier the more we get into this the more we get into this flow state. So I think a lot of people can kind of connect this to aha moments where they are maybe thinking about something and they've been overthinking and overthinking, and this idea just isn't coming to them. And it's only when they start to relax, it's only when the mind starts to focus back and all of the scattered directions start to come back as one, and they're like, oh, from that space, from that stillness, something comes forward. And there's a lot of derivative from that being in that flow state. Of course, we associate it often to sports. And that will be the athlete that just does things and you look at it and you're like, oh my God, like how did they do it? It's amazing. Well, the surgeon doesn't get the same, airtime. They don't get a network dedicated to them, and they don't get announcers dedicated to them, and then they don't get the post-surgery, wrap up that sports and athletes get. So it's more in the spotlight when this happens. But it can happen to a soldier, it can happen to that surgeon, it can happen to a figure skater, it can happen to anybody that's doing something that requires a lot of focus and attention to achieve the quality. So that's really the goal. The goal is to establish our attention and maintain our attention in a relaxed state long enough that we start to shed the resistance. We start to shed the things. And by resistance, you could look at that almost physically, almost like an airplane that is experiencing a lot of wind resistance because it wasn't designed well. Or maybe its wing flaps are up and they need to put them down so that there's less resistance, and then it really starts to flow. So those are some of the things that we're talking about when it comes to deep work. We want to be able to focus on our deep work. We want to be able to care enough about it to maintain the focus that we established. And if we're able to do that for a certain period of time, we start to shed anything that was holding us back. And somebody else looking on, they could be like, wow, they make that look really easy. It could be a very technical task like climbing a mountain, but a person gets into that zone, they get into that flow state, things start to move with the least amount of cognitive and physical and spiritual and energetic resistance. It just starts to fall off because the focus is impeccable. The focus is unmoving. So in the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about some of those derivatives, like what comes from a mind that can engage in very deep work, and it can do so long enough in such a way that a flow state is achieved. So now we're doing the thing that we love. We're doing it with quality. We're doing it with care. We're doing it with intention. It's getting deeper and more profound. And then we start to make it look easy because now we're in a type of flow state. And to the onlooker, it's like, wow, I don't know how they do it. Well, this is how we do it. We do it through focus. And the reason we focus is because we care enough about the work that we're doing to take it deeper. All right, thanks a lot. I'll see you in the next video.